All right, colleagues, like I said, we have representation from everywhere. And now we're going to have a representative from the Department of Labor, the people John Smallwood fights with. The prof fights with. Okay, his name is Pindile Yako. Mr. Pindile Yako is a dedicated and experienced professional currently employed by the Department of Employment and Labor. He holds a qualification in mechanical engineering and further strengthened his professional expertise through various certificates in occupational health and safety, including SAMTRAC, formwork and access, explosives practical training. He also has experience in conducting forensic inspection, root cause analysis, and global harmonized system, among others. He is currently furthering his academic journey by pursuing a Bachelor of Public Administration, demonstrating his commitment to continuous learning and professional development. He has over 15 years of experience in occupational health and safety, and he has built extensive knowledge and practical expertise in workplace safety management, compliance monitoring, incident investigation, and risk mitigation. His career includes 10 years of service as an occupational health and safety inspector, where he was responsible for enforcing health and safety legislation, conducting inspection, and promoting safer working environment across various industries. Currently, he serves as the Occupational Health and Safety Principal Inspector, Mechanical Engineering, with 5 years of experience in this role. His responsibilities include overseeing mechanical engineering inspections, entity registration, which is to ensure that regulation compliance and conducting incident investigation, and he provides technical guidance to improve workplace safety standards. Colleagues, please join me in welcoming Mr. Pindile Yako from the Department of Labor.
I'd say Medasi MC. Ladies and gentlemen, I would say protocol, all protocol observed. I'm not used to the protocol. I'm more used to enforcing the law than protocols. But I'll say, because I have this privilege of standing in front of you, I'll say all protocol observed. As a profile, I was just trying to send my email there to, sorry, not my email, by the way, my presentation. But I see technology is not technology here. But we will then continue because at least, oh, okay, thank you, bruh. Thank you very much. Was a mic somewhere? Oh, thanks. So, one of the things I was asked to present on in terms of this symposium that we are attending this morning was to mention what are the experiences from the department side when it comes to higher education. What are we finding in the non-compliances in higher education? Now, when I looked at that very first point, and then I looked at, I'm like, okay, interesting point that is being asked from us. As a Department of Employment and Labor, we have sectors that the department has categorized as high-risk sectors. So those sectors are the construction. Maybe you've also noticed why from the presentation that were given by Professor Smallwood. The iron and steel sector, agriculture and forestry, and the chemical sector. So those sectors from the department side are high risk sectors from our side. So the bulk of inspections are going there, to those sectors. But I'm going to elaborate more. I think the very first point there, Professor, the Vice Chancellor touched on it, on the South African Occupational Health and Safety Framework, because it's derived from the Constitution. And then from the Constitution, Section 24, as you can see there. But now, that's when now our our act, or our legislation is emanating from, which is the Occupational Health and Safety Act. But within that act, the act has, in terms of Section 43, has regulations on it. So those regulations will also enforce, and then Section 44 talks about incorporated standards. So those standards will also enforce all those that are incorporated on the act. These are just the duties of the employer. So now I'm coming back now to my very first point now. So our exercise from the department's perspective was focusing on those sectors that I've just mentioned. So if we talk of higher education, we haven't been that much on higher education conducting inspection there, because they are not there. But now with time now, we then, since then, had other sectors now that are called problematic sectors, which then now government happens to be part of one of them, those problematic sectors, government. So all of that now will then, the institutions of higher learning will fall under that umbrella of government, as much as in a way we have not said they are problematic, but they will fall under government in our states when we record our states. And of course the other ones will be the wholesale and retail. But basically from there, that is from our side now, when we conduct these inspections now, I'm making an example now, in an institution of this nature, you have different departments, you have different facilities in this campus. So our inspection then will be then talking to those, because we have more than 20 regulations. So that inspection will then be zoomed in, or be focusing on the Occupational Health and Safety Act together with those regulations and incorporated standards together with the national codes. So if for example I'm looking, we are at this auditorium this morning. So what would then will we be interested on here? We will be interested in the ventilation of the persons that are here, the type of lighting that is here. So with the type of seating that you have, so the stairs, all of those things will be interested in looking at them. And at the same time, we'll also be checking now where the activities, like for example, inside the workshop, where there is maintenance that is being carried out for the university. So at the workshop, we'll be interested on the type of equipment that is used. Of course, who is using that equipment? Are they trained? What type of training? At the same time, with the training that they are given. And then we also check now with them, guys, are you conversant now of the hazards that are in those activities that you are performing? So has a risk assessment been conducted for those specific activities? Because what was also touched on this morning was also on the duty of the employer, because the employer has a duty that is coming from the Constitution to ensure a safe working environment. So how does the employer then do that? So one of the ways that an employer does that is to conduct a risk assessment. So a risk assessment that is then talking to the activities that are being performed in different faculties, in different sections of the university. So then that one will then be talking to it will be specific now to those activities that are performed in a specific unit or faculty, or we're talking workshop or grounds and all of that. So it will then be addressing those activities that are there. Hence now the importance now from the Vice Chancellor, Vice Chancellor will have the 16 tools that are appointed. If I may put it maybe in your way, will be the deans maybe of the faculties. So that dean is responsible for that workplace, or for the faculty compliance with safety. Of course, with the responsibility being on the employer of complying with health and safety, the Section 13 also talks about the employees now having a duty to comply. So meaning now it's a collective responsibility. So even myself as an employee, I have a duty to ensure that firstly, I'm safe, I perform my duties safely, and at the same time, I ensure that the person that I'm working with is safe, and also I adhere now to the protocols or to the safety management systems that the employer has put in place. Hence, the employer comes first to ensure that. So we then follow now that system that the employer, because as I mentioned, part of the things that the employer is required to do is to provide that system of work that is safe for the employees, then establish the hazard as I mentioned, ensure compliance, supervise and inform the employees. But now if you go further now, if we talk of the university, it's not only the employer and an employee relationship. There's a president here who is representing the students at this faculty. So there are persons other than the employees which the Vice Chancellor has a duty to ensure that those persons are taken care of. That's what we also check that now, because that is in compliance with the regulations of the law. So how conversant now are your employees? Like for example, we spoke of the labs. They also perform work on there's work that is done in labs. They have to perform some experiments there and all of that. But now, how is the employer then complying with the requirements of the regulations for hazardous chemical agents, for example? So then the requirement and the responsibility will be that now whoever is responsible for the lab, from the lecturer or whoever is a lab technician to the students now, this is then followed. One of the things that the employer, as much as they identify the hazards, the risk and the control measures, one of the things now that follows is the duty to inform. So from that student to the lab technician, to the person responsible. So here are the responsibilities now to inform, to instruct, to train. If we talk of a lab, if there are chemicals used there at the lab, the chemicals come with a safety data sheet. So that safety data sheet determines what kind of an animal it is, what are its hazards, what are the control measures, what safety first aid. So that then will then be talking or be incorporated in the chemical risk assessment for that specific area, which is laboratory. So meaning whoever enters the lab will then be taken through that. Hence now the advice or the comments that such things as health and safety must then be incorporated in or on when the students are being inducted. Firstly, they first know that there is this animal called health and safety. And then now when they get to the labs now, they get to more understanding now when they get there, because now it is going to be more elaborative now. Because now it's defined now, you are then told now what is it that is expected of you, how you can execute this type of an experiment. But now, what are the hazards that are within that? And then what are the control measures that you, as a student, you need to follow? Of course, that is then the student follows what he or she sees being practiced by the lab technician, by the person who is responsible there. Of course, at the lab, you're dealing with chemicals, such things as ventilation will also be very important, because remember, you are talking about chemicals and of course what type of chemicals. So all of those measures should then be in place. And at the same time, if you think of the groundsmen, they use different equipments there. If they use tractors, they use bush cutters. So what type of training are they taken into? Do they know about the risk assessment? Do they know about the rotating parts? Do they know that the PTOs of the tractors, are they covered, so that they ensure that all the rotating parts are covered or are guarded, are well guarded, so to ensure that the person who's operating is operating it in a safe way. So such activities then, when we then come and check all of these things from the department side now. For example, if the tractor doesn't have a pull take off, for example, doesn't have a guard where it is rotating, whether it's when it's connecting a bush cutter or anything that is connected to the pull take off, but it doesn't have a guard, but there is a rotating shaft. That one, from our side now, we then stop that activity. Because as we come from the department side to conduct such inspections, we then check the compliance, and then if there is a non-compliance in those activities that are being performed, that can then endanger the persons that are working. So we record those in the form of 3 notices. So when we come, when there is nothing, when there's something wrong, we address that there and there in a form of 3 notices. Where you get an improvement notice, then we see, okay, here in this area you will then need to improve. And then if there is and a second one would be a contravention. Then there's a contravention. For example, I'm making an example of a pull takeoff of a tractor. Its shaft is not covered. That one will then cause an immediate danger, because a person, if he's wearing something that is loose, he can easily be pulled by that pull takeoff. So that one we then prohibit that one and stop it. Then the third one will be a contravention notice. So the contravention notice, you have contravened the act or any of the more than 20 regulations. So then both that contravention and the improvement notice, they give the employer 60 days to comply. So meaning after 60 days, we then come back and then do a follow-up on that. Of course, if the employer does not comply, well, we always tell the employer that we always facilitate a way so that they can go and meet people who wear suits, because we go there with our safety shoes there and our overalls when we go conduct our inspections. But we do facilitate. If the employer wants to see people wearing black suits and white shirts, we facilitate such when they are not compliant. So there is a prosecution process that is being followed there. But of course, this is done under the unit of the Department of Employment and Labor called the Inspection and Enforcement Services. So the inspectorate, we are the custodians of most of the laws that are administered at the workplace. So one of them happens to be the Occupational Health and Safety Act. So under that, so at the Department of Employment and Labor, you have a unit now of the inspectors, which is called Inspection and Enforcement Services. So in this unit, we have 3 pillars there. We don't only, what I was talking about facilitating now when the employer is not compliant, that is the last resort, as you can see there. Our very first pillar in inspection and enforcement services, shortly called IES, is advocacy, where we conduct such as we are doing today. We inform people, we inform the employers, we inform the employees, the unions, we teach them or we let them know about the law. And then secondly, we then do an inspection. So as I mentioned, that we come and do an inspection. Then after that inspection now, if there are any findings, we use those 3 notices, we record them. Thereafter, if the employer does not comply, then there is enforcement. So you can see the enforcement is the last resort. So as inspectors then, if you look there under the International Labour Convention 081, so the inspectors are independent, in what they are doing. We are independent. So like my supervisor cannot change. If I prohibited here in this place, auditorium, because there's no ventilation here, my supervisor cannot do anything there. The employer, even our chief director provincial operation cannot do anything, cannot change my decision. Only your employer, the employer can write to the chief inspector who sits in Pretoria to appeal the decision of the inspector. So that is what it mentions. So the inspectors also have functions and also have powers. So those powers, as I mentioned, we enforce the law. Through those notices, we prohibit all of that. So it is touching that. So we have a mandate. So those legislations are the ones that mandate us as the inspection and enforcement services, which is one of them is the Occupational Health and Safety Act. So that's just our organogram as the Department of Employment and Labor. I think one of the things that was touched on was about the shortage now of the staff. For example, before 2020 as the department, we had, I think that's also one of the things that we were not as visible. Hence now, I was touching on the fact that these higher learning institutions, now 2027 financial year, it's one of the things that has been also prioritized now to be incorporated as moving forward. Because before 2020, like in our province, Eastern Cape, we have 16 offices, and out of the 16, we were only 14 inspectors. So 14 inspectors, only 5 offices out of the 16 had an inspector. So now you think now the visibility was not there. But in 2020, department employed 500 inspectors. Hence now you can see that organogram now that is being followed. So where I'm seated, I'm coming from the provincial office. So they coming back now to an institution of higher learning. I'm responsible for mechanical regulations. The act is divided in different health, electrical. I'm responsible for mechanical regulations. Some of the lifts that you see here in that have been put on the new buildings or have been replaced, they come to my office before the contractor installs them. They require a permit. So they send it to me. So I inspect also those. So I think also with the colleague from Forte talking about the contractor management, that's one of the things that are talking now to the requirements of the law that in construction, for example, there is a specification in construction for when you have contractors. As a client, you stipulate what is expected in terms of them complying with the requirements of the law. So the same, I don't see anything maybe that is stopping you. For example, there's a 37-2 agreement. Then you can also stipulate or have a specification from there to say, this is what is expected of you if you are coming to contract with me. Because, for example, I'm making an example of lifts. With the lift, the lift service providers, when they are appointed, maybe there's a new lift that is here, if it needs to be replaced or it needs to be put. So the client, which is roads, appoint the service provider who's going to come and install that lift. But now, most of the things, what is common now, what you also, I'll hear from you roads, how you are managing that. That lift, if that company comes and installs the lift, most of the time they give it, because we are roads, we don't deal with the lift, we don't maintain lift, so they give everything to this specific lift service provider to say you must install it and you must maintain it. And every 2 years, a lift must be serviced or must be inspected by a registered lift inspector or an approved inspection authority. So most of the times now you get that the institution will just give everything to that lift service provider to run everything. Remember now, the registered lift service inspector is an independent somebody. So you cannot then have a person who installed the lift and then still have I still appoint someone who is independent to come and inspect my lift. The user, in terms of the lift escalator passenger conveyor regulation, is the university who has got a duty to appoint the service provider to install and the registered lift inspector. So you can't give both those to one person, because that person now is a player and also a referee. So it can't work like that. So those are the things that needs to be looked at. And at the same time, one of the challenges where there are lifts, for example, with the department, you've got a lot of them here. Once a lift is installed, then this person, an independent somebody, or an approved inspection authority or registered lift inspector will come and inspect that lift and then issue a report, which is called a comprehensive report. Excuse me. So that comprehensive report has got items. Second page of it, there are items there, which is a 5.1 and a 5.2. So there, that's where now as a user, remember it's given to you as a user. So you check what are the items. There are 60-day items that are listed there. So what we are expecting as a department, you as a user, you then required to address those, because there are incidents that have happened in a lift. A lift is safe by looking at it, but if it's not well taken care of, it would easily endanger people. An example, you get some of the lifts, the lift floor and the building floor, they are not in line. So what is that now? That is a tripping hazard just on its own. Some of the lifts are dark inside. So whose responsibility is that? So it is the user. It is the institution. So those are the things that we find throughout our inspections, that this is where you have a problem that requires now, because there's a gap. So you get the institution will be like, no, that's not my baby. It is the service provider. But when we come now, we don't say, no, that is a service provider. We don't deal with the service provider. We deal with you because the law requires you to comply with that. So, of course, now, in ensuring a safe environment, a safe working environment, the employer then is required to make systems, to put systems in place. Systems like what? You have your share representative committees. So, which I'm sure in each department you have such. Then from those departments, then you carry out your monthly inspections. Then from those monthly inspections, you do your quarterly meetings. But with the quarterly meetings, it's not just a matter of having them. It's a matter of they are recorded. There is a responsible person. There are time frames that have been put to close in those gaps or those areas that have been identified that are a hazard. So showing that all of us, we have a responsibility for safety. So if for example, at the workshop, there is someone who is a health and safety representative there, that person ensures or is working hand in hand with the other guys there. It's not his sole responsibility. It's everyone. Health and safety is everyone's responsibility. But we're just working as a team. They take their notes from there. Then from there, they come and present. And at the same time, also, when it comes to the identification of hazards now, which is the risk assessment, I can't come and conduct a risk assessment for a person who operates a tractor, for example, without interacting with him. Because he's the best person who knows best about operating that. So I must then, what is then expected of me? I must engage that person when I conduct that risk assessment. one of the things that are also a good one, when you do that, that person also takes ownership because he or she participated. You can imagine when you are given something without you having an opportunity. Hence now, even from the department's perspective, if there is a new regulation that is coming out, there is an opportunity for every one of us to do what? To participate and comment. For example, look for example here, when under our developments, there's an OHS bill which is probably can come before the end of this year. We've been promised by the minister. And then we also have a noise-induced. Currently we have a regulation called noise-induced hearing loss. But now in September, starting 6 September 2026, it's no longer going to be called noise-induced hearing loss. It's going to be noise exposure regulations. So now those regulations, before they were then promulgated, public participation was invited. So that's where now we need that participation. And of course, with the academics, those researchers on health and safety specifically to see how health and safety is being implemented, we really appreciate also the inputs from observing the activities there. We really appreciate those inputs. Then there's a regulation called environmental regulations for workplaces, which is going to be physical agents regulations. So that one, the environmental regulation will then be talking, for example, in this environment, such things as ventilation. The requirement of the law is that a workplace, whether it's your office, it's a lecture room, it's an auditorium, it must either be ventilated either mechanically or natural. Here we're talking mechanical because we're using mechanical ventilation. So, and then lights, the type of illumination and all of that is covered under that regulation, but now it's going to be called physical agents regulations. And then the construction also is also going to come out. That's Professor Smallwood will comment more there. He knows more about that one, but I know him and the department. And then the general machinery regulations also is expected to come out this year. This one now, the general machinery regulations, like for example here at the University of Rhodes University, you are then expected to have someone who is called a supervisor of machinery. So that person then, he is then determined now, his qualification can either be electrical or mechanical. That person then, his qualifications then will then be determined by the power demand from this university. So the basic one will be a trade test. The second one will be a national diploma or the advanced diploma. And then you go to your BSc, which is a Bachelor of Sciences in Electrical or Mechanical Engineering, or that person is in possession of a government certificate of competence. So that person also, you can see the chain now. If we're talking about health and safety, it goes a long way. So it's not only the reps that are also there, the she reps, the safety officers. You can see that everyone, because even that person who's appointed, he must then ensure that the machinery, it is kept in a safe way and it is maintained in good condition so that the persons who are using such machinery are also safe. And we have also a regulation concerning the certificate of competency. For one to be a certificated engineer, then he must then write an examination. So there's those regulations are also going to be coming out, expected this year. And then lift, escalator, passenger conveyor regulations. As I mentioned, I made an example of lifts that are registered so that you can get an official number from the department. So now that now is going to be changed because the conveyor, passenger conveyor, the standards are not talking about a passenger conveyor, they're talking about a walkway. So then that is going to be changed because to incorporate that. So basically, from the department's perspective, health and safety is a responsibility of everyone. And as much is starting from there, the CEO, which is in this case is a vice chancellor, he then plays his or her role, and at the same time, then now it comes to the other deans who are 16 twos, going to the committees, playing their roles because they are health and safety reps who are conducting their day-to-day inspections, and at the same time having those meetings, so that quarterly meetings, to ensure that whatever findings, they are addressed and then they are monitored. Because one of the things on the 5 functions the professor mentioned, the last one is talking about control. So that's where you will be talking now, your monitoring there, your audit, your inspections, to ensure still this compliance. So health and safety is a team. We need to work it as a team for us to comply and to also ensure a health and safety environment. Of course, if there are activities that one sees or deems that they are not safe, that person has a right to stand for that and bring it to his or her manager or immediate supervisor. So and at the same time, one, in terms of the Act 1 of Occupational Health and Safety Act, employees are protected from victimization from the employer. So that's, as the department, we wanna thank this opportunity of sharing information. Of course, I've just touched on, you'll have your questions, but from the side of the department, more what we're touching on is more of emphasizing the safety, but with the systems that are in place, but systems, effective systems that are being followed, but at the same time prioritizing safety, which is starting from me as an employer, from me as an employee, from me as a student, to ensure that each and every one is working safely. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much for that presentation. And I think one of the common themes that is coming through is the fact that health and safety does not belong to one department or one office. It requires a collaborative effort from everyone sitting here. Colleagues, we have, so thank you very much, Mr. Pendile. Yoko, we really appreciate your presence here and for your presentation. The next speaker, I think the representative from DUT, former president, handed over, you're the immediate president, right? Yeah, handed over to the next speaker. And the next speaker, we have the Shikasa president, who will be speaking about benchmarking safety maturity in South Africa. But before she gets up, we went through the website to find out a little bit about her. And we would like to, we even went to Facebook, Instagram. But anyway, colleagues, we have the privilege of listening to, be calling out one of our leaders whose career has been about safety, health, and environmental responsibilities. And it's one of the things she preaches is that safety, health, and environmental is more than just simply compliance. But the fact that it's a matter of human dignity, which is one of the things the Vice Chancellor also spoke about. And also, for us to have a sustainable future, we need to have safety, health, and environmental. Mrs. Nkumiseni Mavungu is a seasoned occupational health, safety, environmental professional who has dedicated a career to building safer and healthier environments within the higher education sector and even industry. Since 2014, which is about 12 years ago, she has served at the Tshwane University of Technology, where her leadership and expertise have continued to strengthen the culture of safety and environmental responsibility within that institution. Also, within her life, you can see there's growth, and she's very big on development and professional excellence. She moved from serving as an environmental control officer at organizations such as Roshcon, High Voltage, and Rand Water. After that, she went to obtain a master's degree in environmental management. She has consistently demonstrated a passion for learning, transformation, and impact. She has qualification in SAMTRAC, occupational hygiene, total quality management, facilitation, assessment, moderation, and moderation reflect not only her technical expertise, but her commitment to empowering others through knowledge. Beyond her qualifications, she also a truly remarkable in her leadership. And she believes that truly remarkable is her leadership within the profession itself. As a certified member of SAUSH and current president of Shikasa, she continues to shape conversations around occupational health, safety, and environmental management at a national level. Higher education institutions, and I think we've heard from DUT, Forte, Rhodes University, it faces a growing challenge around safety, well-being, resilience, and sustainability. Voices like hers are not only important, but they are necessary. She reminds us that creating a safe and learning and working environment is not just about policies and procedures, but about protecting people, preserving futures, and building institutions that truly cares. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Mrs. Nkumiseni Mavungu, President of Shikasa.
Sorry. Thank you so much, Program Director, and all the colleagues, all protocols observed. I just had one question. When Prof. Smallwood saying, if there were no regulation or act, were we going to implement health and safety? But I have this question of saying, is the university going to appoint us as health and safety officers if there were no any regulation? Because what I see is like we are at the front line. They're just placing us there just in case if something happens, they will just say, they say she officer. But in the process, when you are working, they don't take you serious. So, thank you so much, Prof. Smallwood. As the second presentation that I'm doing with him, so it means I'm very lucky. Maybe tomorrow I will be a professor. Okay. Thank you so much. Okay. Yeah, thank you so much, Ms. Belinda, for the invite. We really appreciate. My name is Nkumiseni Mavungu, the president of Shikasa. I'm still new, that's why I'm traveling with my past president. So the topic that I'm going to present today is about resilience in practice. Why resilience? we cannot be resilient if everything is fine. So it means there are some challenges or problems that makes health and safety officers to have this resilience. So who is SHICASA? SHICASA is the Safety, Health and Environment Campus Association of South Africa. It was founded in 2015, established by Ruth Sonia Kobas, that was a mistake, and partners across South Africa. So these people, they've started this organization because they've seen that there is no any association for health and safety officers within the universities, or all the organization out there like SAYOSH and all those, they don't really concentrate on universities. So the purpose is to connect and share, promote the exchange of occupational health and safety information and best practice between SHE professionals. So we meet, like we link with each other through the conferences, seminars, and webinars. So that's the main aim behind the SHICASA. So the presentation outline, I'm going to talk about what does resilience mean, practical challenges of Occupational Health and Safety Act, unique risk and success stories, practicing proactive compliance. So I would like to, I don't know if I will be able to play this. Or you can play there. Okay. There's no volume. There's no volume. Okay, it seems like we are struggling with the volume, but this video, it's about the palm trees, where there was a very strong wind, but this palm tree, they don't break, they just bend, and then they come back and stand still. So that was the reason for me to bring this video, to say if we are talking about resilience, it means you can break, you can bend, but you don't have to break. What does resilience mean? It means doing the right thing repeatedly, even when it is hard, ignored, or thankless. So we all know that as a SHE professional, it's not easy to be recognized. My past president was saying sometimes they talk of us like we are the enemy of the university. They say, hey, don't try here, don't do this, don't do that. So even if we are experiencing that, we need to be resilient. And when you are working, even though the situation is not right, we need to document everything that we are doing. What I know is that when we talk about health and safety, it's more of paperwork, because whatever you do, you need to document it. And even when the budgets are cut, you focus on the top 3 life-threatening risk. So sometimes when you want to do something as health and safety, you will be talking about the budget. But still, even though there's no budget, but those 3 top life-threatening, we need to consider. We are talking about fire, the issue of emergency, the fire extinguishers, the fire detectors, even though the universities can say we don't have money, but all those 3 needs to be in place. Engage continuously. So the VC was also talking about adding the health and safety on the agenda. So it means even though it's not simple to make this awareness, but it's very important to try to get into departments when they are having their meetings. You just need to have the slots there so that you can present or talk about health and safety topics. Use what you have. Reframe what resources are available to drive achievable goals. So there are times that if you need the employees to be trained, they will tell you about the budget. But as a health and safety officers, sometimes you can do the awareness even though you are facilitating something that they cannot use outside, but the matter of information, it's a way of using the legal that you have. Practical challenges of applying occupational health and safety. Within the universities, we all know that as the campus, it has different environments. So it means different environments is different risk. So these are the challenges that we encounter as the university. No central oversight, like each and every department, they will be doing their own things. We have different labs, we have different environments. So it means even the risk are not the same. And then the academic autonomy. Then we have Department of Labor as a challenge on us to apply this occupational health and safety. I'm glad because you mentioned that we were not concentrating at the universities. So it means me and you, it's like we were preparing this presentation together. So Department of Labor has power, or they are constitutory department, but they don't have a higher education focus. So they conduct inspection, but it's very rare. We are at a low priority from Department of Labor. Then we have Department of Higher Education. Department of Higher Education, they know the university, but they don't have power. They don't have statutory power to inspect the university. But they have the health unit, but they only consider the students, not the employees. DHET also does not have a specific occupational health and safety unit, and also no funding leverage, whereby they don't give the universities money of saying, go and comply with health and safety. So, which leads to university not to comply, and they will not have more power of saying you are not complying because they are not giving us money. So how to navigate between those challenges? With the DHET gap, they need to work together with Shikasa or universities. They need to link grants to occupational health and safety, and then advocate for health and safety unit, and also do the link of grants with the occupational health and safety, like I've indicated. And then Department of Labor, we need to invite the inspectors, but because they are saying they are appointing more inspectors, there will be no need for us to appoint them. They will come to inspect, because what I know is that they just need to come even though they didn't notice us, they just surprise us. But here I said invite them because it's very rare to find them. Document everything, whatever that the inspector will come and advise, we need to document it. Keep legal logo compliance documentation system, even though they are not coming like regularly, but because we have Occupational Health and Safety Act and the regulation, we need to appoint or comply with the act and the regulation by appointing from 16.1, having SHE committees, having 37.2, all those legal appointment. We need to comply with them. And then on campus, it means you need to map all environments from the university, and then one checklist per area. It's not a uniform where you will use one inspection checklist for all the environments. Hence, I've indicated that the risks are also not the same. So it means the checklist must also be specific to a certain environment. And you need to train the SHE reps. So it means all the appointed SHE reps need to be trained. And those who are working at the labs, even the students, you can also train them. Safety moments in meetings, top 3 risk, fire, chemicals, and falls. Find champions and give awards. So it's very important to have the champion. I was glad in the morning when Belinda was showing me one of the SHE reps who won the awards for health and safety. So this is what I'm talking about. So these are the practical, or navigate practical challenges of Occupational Health and Safety Act. We have pillar 1, which is building a relationship, and then pillar 2, you need to build the system. So on building relationship, shift from enforcer to advisor. You know, at the university, when we walk around, those who are cleaning or landscaping, you will find them not wearing PPE, but they will try to wear them when they see you. So it means we are the police officers. So we don't need to be the enforcer, but to advise so that they can understand on why am I wearing this PPE. Find champions, invite Department of Labor, lobbying DHET and Shikasa, request DHET link grants to Occupational Health and Safety, use DOL visit to motivate leadership. So Mr. Yoko, you have to visit our universities and advise our management. And build system, focus on the top 3. I've said that. 1 checklist per environment, safety moments in existing meeting, keep a legal protecting logo, document all communication, SHE training, encourage near-miss reporting. So this one, it's very crucial and it's very challenging because people, they just see, if I'm not injured, it means everything is fine. But there might be someone who can come and get injured from that near miss that we have experienced. Map all campus environments, and these are the success stories from the universities that I've identified. We have University of Cape Town, where they were doing awards on health and safety, women-led award, and also on hazardous waste disposal, redesign, and lab SOP and evacuation protocols. So it's very, very, very important to award people who are doing great jobs because it encourages other people to comply. And then we have University of Johannesburg. You can see they managed to accumulate 96% on audit from the SONH compliance audit. This is for nursing. And UNISA, they managed to host Shikasa conference. Yes, it was our 8th conference, but the way they did it, it was extra. So you can see the engagement between the SHE office and the management or the VC. So it was just extraordinary. So these are the universities that having a success stories, not saying other universities they don't have, but you might find that it's not on internet. So you can also put yourself there. So proactive compliance, you know, you also indicated when you were talking about the purpose of the day. That's the challenge with us, not SHE professional, but with everyone. Everywhere we are, we react, not to be proactive. So we need to build a sustainable culture of care. But how do you do that? You share your information with other people. That's where we talk about benchmarking. So with Shikasa, we share the information through our conferences. Because if you sit here at Rhodes and you want to benchmark with someone at Limpopo, it will be difficult for you to get the contact for that person at Limpopo. So through Shikasa conference, that's where you meet people and you will find this one is from Limpopo, and then you change contact and then you go and do the benchmarking. And it also assists because when we share our experience, some of the things you try to prepare them before they happen at your university. And even when they happen, you know how to handle them. Then you must also do an audit voluntarily when you just go to the environment and do the audit. That's where you will become proactive than reacting and learn cross sectors from different sectors. So as Shikasa, we are also desired to do a collaboration with SAYOSH, because you know the SAYOSH is for the SHE professionals, but hence I've indicated there are conferences and sometimes they are not really related to the university, but if we can collaborate with them and share the risk that we are experiencing within our university, we hope and belief that it's going to assist us. And also Department of Employment and Labor, so that they can come and do the regular inspections and guidance. It's very serious. I have 12 years working at TUT at Karangwa campus. I've never seen an inspector inspecting, except if there's a construction. But to check the normal environment, they don't. We once had an incident where the roof fell for the class. I wrote the report to the Department of Labor. Till to date, I haven't received any response. So, so that's why I'm saying it's very important to have a collaboration. If possible, Mr. Yoko, Department of Labor can have people who concentrate at the universities. Because we have different risks, and when you look at us, you just say, everything is fine, but it's very crucial environment. And DHEAD, we also wish to collaborate with the DHEAD, but the challenge there, they don't have occupational health and safety unit. So, which means it's very difficult, but it's our wish. Yeah, because we tried to contact the health department, and they were like, no, we only deal with the health for students. So, and then USAF is for the universities, advocate occupational health and safety as a sector-wide priority. Together, these partners can unlock policy, funding, and accountability for higher education institutions. In my conclusion, from policing to partnership. South African university faces unique enforcement gap. DHEAD has no power. DOEL has no focus. Campuses operate in silos, yet resilience is possible. So from policing to care, from reactive to proactive, from isolated to collaborative. So you cannot just sit here alone at roads, so you must go out and collaborate and see what other people are doing. Together we move, making safety everyone's responsibility. I thank you.
Thank you very much. There's just few things that I picked up that I would like to reinforce, which is, sorry, I'm trying to find my notes, yes. First of all, thank you very much, Madame la Présidente, Madam President. I think when you spoke about there needs to be a shift from the SHE officers being seen purely as enforcers to becoming trusted advisors. And I think I said so earlier when I was introducing Belinda, where I said one of the things I really love about her tenure at Rhodes University is the fact that, I mean, some of these safety things doesn't come naturally to some of us. And it's similar to what I sometimes tell the student body, that nobody was born woke. And it's very important to walk people through the process. And I think that point, so that really sounded very good for me, because it is very important, not enforcers, but advisors as well, because sometimes it's important to walk us through the process, because some of these things, it doesn't come naturally. We don't see that. Yeah, so it's important we are guided and supported through them rather than simply corrected. So that advisor thing, thank you very much for that. I think you also mentioned the fact that Department of Employment and Labor can play a critical role, and I think it goes back to what the former president said as the VC about bridging the gap. And I think that it will be an important, because the more they inspect, if the department can approach things collaboratively, the SHE officers will not be perceived as troublemakers, but rather as partners who are helping all of us build a safer, healthier, and more resilient institution. So I think that could help there. And then I think you also, another point that you mentioned when you said sharing information and learning from others. Through benchmarking, I believe it's incredibly important. Even attending, and the next speaker is a president of that body, attending something like AkuOI for me enlightened me, and it made me, through the benchmarking, I was like, actually, you know what? Some of our issues are similar. And also, and I like the fact that it also prevents certain things, because maybe Rhodes has not experienced it yet. Another university, TUT, has experienced it. Now when we are able to prepare ourselves before we get there. So I did really like that. Attending conferences or even symposiums such as these, they help broaden our understanding and exposes us to very valuable experiences from other people. Because through this engagement, and I'm saying this because when we go for lunch, I want us to be quite intentional about benchmarking, about listening to other people's experience and not sticking with the same people that we know. Yeah, because through this engagement, we become more informed, better prepared, and able to learn from both the successes and challenges that is faced by others. So it's very important that we don't take it for granted, and it's a very important way of collaboration and even just growth. So thank you very much for that presentation, and I really hope we will be intentional during the break just to learn from each other. Our last speaker, we're running out of time, so we'll try and cut down some of the things here and there. Our last speaker is someone who is very, very known to myself since I first got here in 2006, 20 years ago. Since 2006, and I think she's been quite consistent with the person I met in 2006 is the same person that I get to meet now. And that is that Ms. J. Pillay leads with love. There is so much calmness in her approach, very dependable. And I just want to read just a few things about her. She has qualifications from the University of Bath, also has an MBA from Rhodes University, and Ms. J. Pillay has combined academic excellence with compassionate leadership that has transformed student life and the institutional care. But like I said before, Ms. J. Pillay leads with love. For years, students and staff, and even student leaders, like the SRCs over the years, have experienced her commitment to listening, caring, and showing up for the student body. From her days as manager of food services to her role now as director, through every season, she has remained grounded in compassion, service, and love. We at Rhodes University are really proud to share her with the rest of the country and the Southern African region, as she serves as the first women president of ACU-OI. She gets to share her experience, her wisdom, her warmth, and excellence. Ms. J. Pillay is truly remarkable, and it doesn't matter from whether it's difficult periods like fees must fall, she has always placed the well-being of the students, and her partnership with Higher Health, ACU-OI's partnership with Higher Health has been the greatest during her tenure as president. And for those who don't know, Higher Health, their slogan is that you must graduate healthy and alive. Okay? And I believe that Ms. J. Pillay embodies that. Even in the residency, she's always looking for ways to improve it for the mental well-being of the student body. Ladies and gentlemen, we are so lucky to have the president of ACU-OI present to us today, Ms. J. Pillay. Please join me in giving a round of applause. A warm welcome to Ms. J. Pillay.
Good day, everyone. I just paid Eric a huge sum of money to be my public relations officer. Thank you, Program Director Belinda and the organizing committee for inviting me as the president of ACU-OI and not as the director of residential operations at Rhodes University. I greet all of you, our university leadership, our student leadership, esteemed speakers, delegates, with care, and I honor your presence here. On this note, I'd like to say all protocols observed. Friends, colleagues, guests, my presentation today is going to be a little provocative, very different from the previous speakers. It's on the perspectives of ACU-OI. ACU-OI is the Association of Colleges, University, Housing Officers International. It's an American body that represents campus accommodation, but the professionalizing of campus accommodation. And the SAC is the Southern African chapter, and we're the only chapter outside of America. And this year we celebrate our 20th year in South Africa. So it is an honor and a privilege to represent the organization and to be the first woman president of the organization. And I just feel very privileged that I can inform the communities, the student communities and student housing. So ACU-OI calls that living and learning communities and campus accommodation systems, and it should be understood as an integrated developmental and risk environment rather than merely residential services or campus accommodation. At Rhodes University, we have nearly 4,000 students in res. That's just on 50% of our students. And I think the same would go for most campuses across South Africa. There's been a big move towards campus accommodation. DHET has gazetted the norms and standards for campus accommodation, and yes, it's done on the premise that we are looking at building norms and standards, and we need to consider the health and well-being of our students as central to those campus accommodation conversations. So, colleagues, student accommodation in South Africa or in the Southern African higher education has evolved beyond student function into a strategic institutional system directly influencing student success, safety, well-being, and retention. Residences are developmental spaces where students experience institutional culture, social integration, identity formation, and academic engagement. However, accommodation systems increasingly operate under conditions of aging infrastructure, overcrowding, environmental instability, uneven municipal services delivery, and growing psychosocial vulnerability among students. The COVID-19 pandemic further exposed these weaknesses relating to sanitation, ventilation, occupancy density, and institutional preparedness, while climate-related disruptions and energy insecurity continues to reshape operational realities across universities. Within this context, residences have become complex risk environments requiring integrated governance systems, linking infrastructure management, environmental health, student support, safety, and operational leadership. I stress that student accommodation must be repositioned as a public health environment, a developmental ecosystem, and a strategic institutional asset supported through evidence-based governance and resilience planning. And that talks to the theme of the conversations that we're going to have today. So living and learning communities as development ecosystems, what are those? Our campus accommodation are living and learning communities, which are intentionally structured residential environments designed to promote academic success, student belonging, leadership development, and holistic well-being. In South African universities, living and learning communities increasingly function as spaces where peer learning, institutional culture, and social integration intersect. At the same time, living and learning communities operate as high-density social and behavioral systems where governance or environmental failures can rapidly amplify vulnerability. Overcrowding, poor maintenance, weak support systems, unsafe communal environments can negatively affect student well-being, academic performance, and student safety. I stress that effective listening, living, and learning communities therefore required an integrated operational and health-focused management approach. Campus accommodation are critical institutional infrastructure. Student housing should be viewed as educational, public health, and institutional risk spaces. Across many universities, aging resident stock and deferred maintenance contribute to structural deterioration, plumbing failures, poor ventilation, electrical faults, dampness, and water ingress. These conditions directly affect student well-being and institutional performance. I'd like to stress, colleagues, that a major challenge within higher education institutions remains fragmented accountability across facilities management, residential operations, occupational health and safety, student affairs, and external service providers. This fragmentation often results in delayed maintenance response, reactive crisis management, weak compliance oversight, and inconsistent communication systems. Without an integrated governance structure, universities struggle to respond effectively to operational and environmental risks. With environmental and infrastructure risks, indoor environment quality has emerged as a significant concern within student accommodation systems. Dampness and mold are frequently associated with roof leaks, inadequate ventilation, burst plumbing systems, and delayed maintenance response times. The resulting health impacts include respiratory infections, asthma aggravation, allergic reactions, fatigue, sleep disruption, particularly within overcrowded residences, off campus with limited airflow. And the same goes for our on-campus accommodations across the country. Importantly, mold is not merely a maintenance issue. It is a public health and student dignity issue that directly affects academic performance and well-being. Water instability within municipalities across South Africa affects residents' hygiene, sanitation systems, food preparation, and disease prevention capacity. Universities are increasingly required to implement proactive environmental health measures such as independent water testing, enhanced sanitation systems, and environmentally monitoring to protect student and staff well-being where municipal systems are unreliable. Campus cleaning and sanitation services should therefore be understood as frontline public health systems rather than ancillary operational functions. Their role in infection prevention, waste management, outbreak mitigation, and environmental hygiene became especially visible during our COVID-19 pandemic, and it remains central to residents' risk management. Food safety and institutional health protection within resident systems represent another critical health and safety domain. Through hazard analysis and critical control points, which is usually called HACCP systems within food production, institutions attempt to reduce food contamination, cross-contamination pathways, temperature failures, and foodborne disease outbreaks. This is the responsibility of health and safety in our workspaces. Maintaining compliance in resource-constrained environments require continuous staff training, hygiene auditing, procurement oversight, and preventative operational planning. Food security amongst our students further complicates institutional responsibility, particularly where residence dining systems serve as primary nutritional support mechanisms for vulnerable students. Psychosocial and risk with student well-being. Our residence spaces either support psychosocial interaction or we break that support. Residence environments are those spaces where students navigate financial stress, academic pressures, loneliness, trauma exposure, and social transition. Unsafe or unstable living conditions contribute significantly to mental health deterioration. Psychosocial pressures are intensified where overcrowding in off-campus accommodations limits privacy, noise disrupts sleep and concentration, and support systems remain under-resourced. The physical environment therefore plays a direct role in shaping emotional well-being and academic performance. Another big factor is gender-based violence, which remains another major concern across higher education environments. Our universities are a microcosm of the larger society, so yes, GBV does affect our campuses greatly. Poor lighting, weak access control, unsafe residence layouts, limited surveillance, and delayed incident response mechanisms contribute to students' vulnerability. Effective GBV prevention requires integrated safety planning, trauma-informed reporting systems, infrastructure design interventions, and institutional accountability frameworks that needs to be embedded within both the physical and social architectures of our residence systems. DHET norms and standards should have been considered to these concerns, but it just speaks about the bricks and the mortar and the building norms. So we need to test that with DHET. The norms and standards for student life establish minimum, and that's it, it's the minimum national requirements relating to infrastructure quality, safety compliance, accessibility, student well-being, and governance systems. But it's left up to individual universities to build on that. However, implementation across the sector remains uneven due to infrastructure backlogs, funding limitations, and inconsistent institutional capacity. Non-compliance to those DHE norms and standards has serious implications, including increased institutional liability, reputational damage, environmental health risk, and unsafe living conditions. Colleagues, more critically, it reinforces inequality between well-resourced and under-resourced institutions, thus undermining equity within higher education. The DHET minimum norms and standards should therefore be viewed not as compliance tools, but as foundational safeguards protecting student dignity, well-being, and educational opportunity. And universities need to build on that to improve on the psychosocial support, the health and wellness, GBV prevention, to ensure that our students are safe on our campuses. Today I represent Accor ISAC and the professionalizing of student housing. A little bit about Accor ISAC. Our vision is to transform Southern Africa through the value-driven student communities. The organization advances this vision through professional development, sector advocacy, collaboration, research, and the promotion of student-centered housing practices across Southern Africa, and that includes Zimbabwe, Botswana, and Namibia, and 22 of the 26 universities in South Africa. We believe a transformative student experience must include safe accommodation, healthy living conditions, inclusive communities, and developmental environments that support leadership, belonging, and well-being. Accor ISAC continues to play a significant role in strengthening institutional capacity, advancing integrated safety frameworks, and professionalizing housing practices across the region. So we believe that research as a driver for institutional resilience is key to the sector's development. So research remains essential for identifying infrastructure deterioration patterns, monitoring environmental health risks, informing capital investment decisions, and evaluating student well-being outcomes. Without evidence-based systems, operational and environmental risks often remain invisible until a crisis emerges. Bridging the gap between research and operational practice requires data. It requires cross-functional collaboration and student-centered environmental assessments. Research in this space, therefore, must move beyond the theoretical inquiry towards practical, institutional, impact capable of informing governance, environmental monitoring, and long-term planning. So, colleagues, how do we build resilience in student accommodation or student housing systems? Resilience within student housing refers to the ability of institutions to anticipate risk, absorb operational shocks, maintain safe living conditions, and then to recover rapidly from crisis. Infrastructure resilience includes preventative maintenance, climate-responsive design, ventilation management, and infrastructure renewal planning. Then talk about operational resilience requires rapid incident response systems, environmental monitoring, and integrated facilities governance. Social resilience depends on student participation, peer support, and inclusive residence cultures, while governance resilience requires integrated compliance systems, strategic leadership, and risk-informed decision-making. Together, these dimensions form the foundation of sustainable and resilient accommodation systems capable of responding effectively to evolving institutional and societal pressures. In conclusion, student accommodation within South African higher education has entered a defining period of transformation. What was once regarded primarily as an administrative support function must now be understood as a strategic institutional domain where infrastructure, health governance, safety, and student development intersect directly. I'd like to argue that safety in student accommodation cannot be reduced to a compliance checklist or isolated operational intervention. It needs to be understood as a continuous institutional condition shaped by infrastructure quality, environmental health, governance systems, social cohesion, and operational responsiveness. The convergence of risks within our residence systems demonstrate our infrastructure failures rapidly evolve from broader human development challenges. A leaking roof becomes a mold risk, a health concern, and ultimately a student success issue. Water instability affects hygiene, food preparation, infection prevention, dignity, and students' ability to participate meaningfully in academic life. Similarly, in off-campus accommodation, overcrowding, unsafe communal spaces, deteriorating infrastructure, and inadequate support systems contribute significantly to anxiety, stress, trauma, and diminished academic performance. I want to highlight that environmental health must become central to the sustainability of student housing systems. Issues such as mold, ventilation deficiencies, sanitation failures, water quality instability, food safety risks requires a proactive institutional response embedded within strategic planning, standard operating procedures, and business continuity plans. Effective housing governance thus requires this to be an integrated collaboration across the sector of facilities management, residential operations, safety and health facilities, student affairs, food services, sanitation systems, and institutional leadership structures. Safety, health and safety on our campus is all our business, is everyone's business. In resource-constrained environments, silo-based operational approaches are no longer sustainable. The future sustainability of higher education in South Africa will depend significantly on the ability of our universities, our policymakers, our sector organizations, and accommodation partners to work collectively towards improving housing systems for students that are resilient, that are equitable, that are professionally managed, and environmentally responsible. And the focus is ultimately on dignity and success of our students. Colleagues, I leave you with this last few words. Student housing is not merely about providing beds. It is about creating conditions in which students are able to live safely, learn effectively, develop holistically, and envision a thriving future for themselves and society. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Thank you. I think we had different stakeholders deliver a presentation speech, and I think the last bit, I hope the student leaders were paying careful attention to that, because it speaks, everything here has affected them, but I think this one speaks directly to their interest. And just to touch on a few things is that living and learning spaces, which is the accommodation that we live in, it matters deeply. Student housing accommodation does not only provide accommodation, but also serves as a developmental space that shape the student experience and even development for the future, okay? And I think when the counselor for the SRC, this might be linked to the question that you asked, and maybe Precious Zulu. Sorry, so yes, my HKE, I know you from HKE. Even similar to what she asked the question, perhaps listening to this presentation, perhaps this, since it's a space for development as well, and I think Professor has been also mentioned how it needs to be part of the module, there needs to be some sort of a module that deals with that. Perhaps this is something we can strengthen further, especially during orientation week. Whilst we are waiting for the module and topics to be discussed, by including a health and safety program, not just an hour discussion, but perhaps a program that ensures that students are informed and empowered right from the beginning, okay? I also, part of the presentation also speaks to, yeah, like there's a strong connection, and SRC, please listen carefully. There's a strong connection from the presentation. There's a strong connection between healthy and safe environment and student success. That came very clearly through that presentation. So creating, it's very important that we create solid, supportive environments that help students thrive academically, socially, that is a psychosocial, and even personally. Okay. Also, in that presentation, the speech, it also said, and which was speaking to all of us, is that we all have a role to play. If we fix the leaking roof, if we are to ensure that there's clean water, and maybe I'm also going to be a bit provocative here, is the fact that I think the institution, we need to put more pressure on the municipality, because how much are we paying the municipality for clean water? And we have not seen a clean water in a very long time. So it's collaborative, because I know it's not in the institution our fault, but the people, our providers, we need to put pressure on them. But anyway, back to the thing, we all have a role to play. If we are to fix the leaking roofs, ensuring that we have access to clean and healthy water, if we are maintaining proper infrastructure, these are not a nice to have, they are necessities. And there was a call for collaboration, and the fact that collaboration, and I think it has been one of the themes today, it's essential. When we work together across all the sectors, all the divisions, all the departments, we build spaces where students can truly flourish. In the delivery, there was also the fact that we must acknowledge between safety, health and safety issues, as well as GBV. So apart from just trying to encourage the students to be more aware and also about GBV issues, I think the part about poor lighting, unsafe spaces, limited surveillances, they often contribute to the vulnerability and insecurity on our campuses. I think that came And those are realities that we cannot ignore, and the fact that we all have a role to play. Also, too often, she officers and compliance matters are pushed aside and it kind of came up in the previous one, pushed aside as though they are non-academic. And I think in the presentation said the health, safety, environmental standards are directly linked to academic success. So students cannot excel if they are unhealthy, if they are unsafe, if they're constantly at risk. Students need to stay healthy, safe, and alive. And I think that is, so although it's pushed aside by, let's say, academics as something that the SHE office must do, they need to be further engagement where they understand that all of that is directly linked to the success. You can't have a master's student if they're tired of a leaking roof. They're not going to perform, number one. Number two is that they're going to look elsewhere. For a easier, a place that they might consider easy. So norms and standards, the other part, norms and standards should therefore not be seen as mere compliance requirements. They should be viewed as a foundation. This one I paraphrase it. I think you said it best, but I skipped that part. They should be viewed as foundational of how we live, learn, and care for the student body. That is me paraphrasing. And then lastly, we must move beyond compliance and move safety, health, and well-being as part of our everyday culture. Those were the themes that I received from the speech. Okay. Now we're going to have quick Q&A session. We're going to do it for maximum of 15 minutes. And then we will go for business of the stomach, politics of the stomach. Any questions? Yes, please. And colleagues, please do remember to introduce yourself so we know, and also outside we will know exactly that's you, ma'am, you, sir, and then also you, sir. The three. This side, up there. Sitting next to HKE.
Next to HKE is another HKE.
HKE.
So my name is Miriam Mattison from HKE. I just wanted to mention that it's more of a comment. The Vice Chancellor spoke about safety culture, right? And a culture is a set of belief systems shared by a group of people. And I think we're all talking to the converted in this room, where we have health and safety as a core interest. But as has also been quite clearly demonstrated, we can't work as just people interested in health and safety. We need to reach out to other service providers within the university, outside the university. And this is where this shared set of beliefs now dissipates, right? Because not everybody shares that same set of beliefs. And this is where Professor Smallwood pointed out the idea of a safety climate. And we cannot achieve health and safety if we don't have an enabling environment around. And again, that includes, like the norms and the standards that Jay spoke about, but it also includes our own behavior. How do we model that kind of behavior? And John rightly pointed out that this needs to start at home. How many of us do have a fire extinguisher at home because we have a gas stove? How many of us actually mop up some water that has fallen on the floor to prevent us from slipping? How many of us teach our kids how to safely cross a road or to put their protective gear on when they play sport? So I think, well, first of all, we need to advocate to others that are not part of our culture in how to act safely and think safely, but I think we also need to model safety beyond our immediate workspace, at home, at sport, in the social environments that we go to, and I think that is probably the biggest challenge. There's only so much we can achieve through setting norms and standards and regulations and having Department of Employment and Labor run after us, but we need to change the culture overall. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next.
Who's next, Eric?
Former President.
Thank you, Program Director. Thank you to our distinguished guests for those presentations. 2 things, and then I won't talk, I promise you. One, to SRC President and President Akuo-I. One of the challenges that we face as we do our audits in the residences is mainly vandalism. I'm not sure, maybe Belinda here at Rhodes, they behave well. Maybe at Fort Hare, your students are behaving. But where I come from, we come across a lot of vandalism of the very same systems that we are trying to protect as per Akuo-I President's presentation. So just go back to your constituencies, SRC, and try and plead with them that the systems that are being put, the hygienic systems and the health and safety systems that we are putting in your residences are solely to protect you. We've had situations where there are fires that are happening in the residences, and when you do your investigations thereof, you find that it's mostly negligence and stupidity from our dear students in those residences. So it's a plea that let's go back there, and I'm happy. I said, Mr. MC, that for the first time that I'm hearing a portfolio from the SRC that deals with health and safety. And I think that should be applauded at this university. Because now the SRC and students would understand better what is it that we're talking about when we talk about occupational health and safety, even of the students. So that is the message. Data, Department of Labor. You're going to talk at that. Just be honest with us. And Program Director, I'm not trying to bash on Department of Labor. I've been to SIOS conference. I've been to any other conference that's health and safety. The complaint is always that Department of Labor are nowhere to be found. The reason why we want you, we don't want to collaborate with you as Shikasa. We want you to help us as SHE professionals in the universities. Don't tell Professor Mabizela, please, that if you come and do inspections in our universities, we are sending those to Professor Mabizelas of our universities so that they can take us serious. Remember, we work under tremendous pressure. We are only 2, she's only 1, and the rest of us are 1 and 2s in the universities. Now, for us to be heard, we need external forces like yourselves and any other person that we need to come and assist us and do this. I was fortunate, Program Director, I will call it fortunate, to receive summons and fines from the municipality fire department because some of my residences were not compliant in terms of health and safety. And guess what? The university ran like headless chickens because now there is a fine. The reputational damage for the university, that's what they are concerned about, but not for the safety of the very same students that are paying their salaries.
Thank you. All right, no, the third one here. Sorry, that there was an order. Yeah, we'll go to the next round. Yeah, the third.
I don't know what's the problem, but I will address that one. First and foremost, I want to say I'm not from the university. I'm from NRF. I'm Thabo Siziba, I work for SIEP. I'm responsible for safety there. And I think this discussion has made me to be more interested. And I want to poke some people here to say that if you think that mining, engineering companies, factories are a hazardous environment, I can confirm that the cocktail of risk are within the universities. Maybe the message needs to go clear because all the elements of regulatory framework needs to be addressed and they are there. So if there's no acknowledgement of that, then there's a problem. I just want to say that. If you look at the statistics, the last time that you have somebody died in mining, it was somewhere in a mining somewhere there. But if you look at the student fatalities, be irrespective whether it's gender-based violence, safety requirements, drowning of students, within that particular space, if you ignore that, it's a pity Vice Chancellor is not here. If you ignore that, let me tell you that the universities are the hub of risks within the societal universe of compliance. So therefore, Department of Labor, yes, it is indeed important that they become a priority to be looked at. But the question that one needs to ask, and I think that's what Prof mentioned, that's what Vice Chancellor says, we need to address. Do we really need to rely on the Inspectorate for Compliance to be addressed? I am saying no. Certainly no. I should be given an assurance that if I send my child to Rhodes University, then my child is safe. Therefore, what structures do you have to put in place to make sure that it's safe? I got worried. I need to compliment you, Belinda, for doing that. If I were to get your job, I would certainly resign within tomorrow and say, to hell with this, not my style. You cannot have a systematic management system of environmental health and safety, risk management, including, which is security, over and above that integrated system, be managed by two people. That's probably incorrect. And if you see some trends to other universities, you start to have a person at the senior level, at the directorial level, to influence. It then goes to your governance structures as universities. How do you then govern this and make noise? Now I hear stories that there's not enough funding. No. Compliance does not rely on funding. It's a statutory obligation of the Vice Chancellor to do that. So these are the things that I need to sensitize, to go back to what was raised. We're talking to the converted here. We all sing the same language. Where are the deans of faculties? Because they should be the ones that are driving compliance, and then we play the advisory role. You understand what I'm saying? So Shikasa and all the other stakeholders within your systematic management system, you need to be able to say, what is our governance structure? And how does this thing translate to become a discussion of the chambers of the Vice Chancellor as a point of discussion, so that it does not only end at the faculty level, it should go beyond faculty level and become at the dean's level. From dean's level at the university level. Another one, okay, that was just me not being in the university. Now let's go back to other risk elements one needs to address. Labor, you've made mention of the fact that visitors, students, and contractors, and the employees. I'm just going to throw this one so that you discuss. I may not join you because I've got another meeting. What happens if the student dies? By virtue of being negligent, by virtue of non-compliance. I know that as an employee, I'm covered in terms of occupational disease and injury. So it's a workplace, so the compensation will cover that element. Who does then cover in an event of that fatality? So I want you to look at the vicarious liabilities so that we educate those that are not converted to understand that how did we rush to 11 million that Prof's board would raise? It's because of the vicarious liabilities. And those liabilities need to unpack to say that how then do we protect each other? So that's a thought-provoking processes. But Shikasa, look at your governance structures as a university at large to say that. Why is it correct that the UKZN would have a director of safety and then Rhodes would have a chief officer? At what impact would she have? And those are the thought-provoking systems that one would want to do that. Thank you, colleagues.
Thank you very much. Because there were comments and not questions, there were comments. And because of time, I think we'll give it to the next round of questions. And yes, Sue, you can give it to Sue. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Sue Robertson, Director of People and Culture at Rhodes. I also want to be a bit provocative here. I don't think that all universities, and certainly not my university, so I am going to shout for us, does not give support to our health and safety person. You're all here at Rhodes because our Vice-Chancellor enabled this conference. So I think we must give credit where credit is due. And I'm not saying that health and safety is not the responsibility of one person. It's not Belinda's responsibility. Belinda is here to help us. It's our responsibility. But I also want to say, can we please have some realistic health and safety things? Because if I came to your home, you come to my house, you can come and do an inspection, you're going to find stuff. But yet, here I am. Okay, no one's died in my house. Okay, that I know about. So we need to make sure, and it does cost money. Health and safety does cost money. So help us be compliant, Department of Employment and Labour. Support our SHE officers, but you don't always have to come with us with a stick. I promise you, we don't want a student to die on our watch. I promise, it keeps Jay up at night, it keeps everyone up at night. No one wants that. So I think sometimes for me, I just feel a bit overwhelmed when I look at the list and I go, oh my word, how are we going to do this? Because actually, we've also all got other jobs that we have to do. So my question to the panel and that is, where do we get the balance? Because I fear a little bit that we are being in a world being run by compliance. But actually, we have more. There are other things that we need to do, and sometimes I wonder if we are being realistic. Maybe we are. And I think that I'd like to say to all of the people that put themselves up, that put up their hands to be health and safety officers, we honor and respect you. And let's give credit where credit's due. A lot of good work gets done. Belinda and her team of one, Belinda, does fabulous work. Look where we are. And it does. It's because people have got passion. She's got passion for this stuff. And I know maybe everyone doesn't quite share your same level of passion, but I want to honor you in this forum and say we're very grateful to have you, and no one must come and poach you. Thank you.
All right. That question, I think, Prof, if you are up to it, I think the director was asking about a balance.
A life and death issue, balance is not applicable. And, you know, I have a problem with South Africans in general, even though I was born a South African. Stop talking and get the job done. Health and safety, I'm repeating myself, is a life and death issue. It's not optional. You want to know about compliance, go and live in Australia, mate. Then you'll find out about compliance. There's very little compliance in South Africa. We fill in FICA forms, meanwhile people buy blue Lamborghinis, etc. You know, the whole South Africa is BS. The whole system's BS. People stuff banknotes into couch cushions. And I mean, it's the dumbest thing you can do in South Africa, because there was someone at the window watching you doing whatever you're doing. So that was not clever. But this issue of health and safety, compliance is not good enough, as I pointed out during my presentation, by the way. You may not have been here. There we go. You missed a big one. And so health and safety, as I stated, is that compliance is the third step in the 5-step Anglo-American health and safety journey model. It's not my fault. It's no secret, as our NRF man pointed out, what happened when Anglo-American focused on zero harm. And the said Canadian woman who took over Anglo-American, if there's a failure of management, you get bulleted, regardless of labor legislation. And our mining industry was notorious for fatalities. and disease, among other silicosis, asbestosis, etc. But you reach a point in time where you've actually got to face reality and stop talking and do. So, yes, the point the VC made, it's everyone's responsibility, but it's not optional. And maybe our NRF man should accompany the Vice Chancellor on a roadshow, because he should be involved with health and safety. Yeah, it's where are the deans? I don't know where they are. And this is what goes on in South Africa. The people that need to listen do not listen, and therefore they never hear. And they never heed, and they never act. Because they never listened, because they weren't there. So maybe that's the first step that Shikasa needs to take, and that is request the respective vice chancellors to send their deans. There can't be more than 7 or 8 deans on average per university and University of Technology. There's quite a lot of seats in here, and I'm sure Shikasa can find a bigger venue. But the question is, what does your average dean know re health and safety? You do not have to answer. What does your average DVC know? Could they deliver a presentation as I did? Probably not. That's scary. So, yeah, I'm not being provocative, I'm just professing. Our NRF man was not being provocative, no. So Shikasa, there you go. You've given, thank you for the recommendation, all of you. I'll add it in. I'm busy editing my presentation in terms of recommendations.
Right.
But it gets driven by the top. When I worked for Murray and Roberts EP, the MD asked me, John, when are we going to achieve a 5-star H&S grading on this project? For several reasons. So it gets driven by the top. I even acknowledged M&R EP in the preface of my PhD thesis, because that's where the seed was sowed. And I've said it before, and I've detailed it in more detail. Pardon the double whatever. If health and safety is not addressed in a university undergraduate program, then university is compromising the sustainability of the Republic of South Africa, and in fact, the sustainability of the African continent. But the problem is there are too many people involved in academia who do not know the real world. There's another problem in RF. And we have to be very careful in our discipline of producing professional academics. Now, we produce PhD graduates, and then they join the department, but they've never really worked in the real world. They haven't stood on the 55th floor of that building in Sandton under construction, or worked 1 kilometer deep in Western Deep, the mine I'm referring to now. So the universities are contributing to the problem because of their programs. And then the people that've got this degree from wherever, Outer Mongolia, the University of Outer Mongolia, but they know diddly squat, re-H&S, and then they get appointed as a dean. So what do you expect? It's hectic, MC and fellow delegates.
Okay. All right.
Everyone's gone silent.
No, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Colleagues, we're going to take a lunch break, and we will be back in an hour's time. May I kindly ask that we be seated at 2:30. 2:30. 2:30, we come back here. We will then tell you guys the different places you need to be. Sorry? No, time. Sorry, may you please, because of time, we've really run out of time, and a lot of the things were statements. The question is the one I did ask the professor since he presented earlier. I requested the professor to answer. But the rest were statements, and because of time, we'd just like to thank all of you for your presentation. We really appreciate that. Thank you so much for your time in preparing this. Okay, everyone, please try and be here at 2:30. Thank you very much.